Don't you ever try to embarrass me here or do anything stupid here.
I'm tired of this toxic relationship, but leaving wasn't easy, but I have to do something.
Lina didn't plan to kiss him, but in a room full of powerful men, he was the only one Damon would never touch. The realization didn't come all at once. It built slowly as she stood beside Damon in the middle of the ballroom, her posture straight and her expression carefully controlled. Around them, the evening unfolded with effortless elegance. Soft music drifted through the air, glasses clinked gently, and conversations flowed as though nothing in the world could disturb the calm. But Lina felt it. The weight of his presence. Damon didn't need to speak. The way he stood close, the brief pressure of his hand at her back, it was enough. It carried meaning no one else in the room seemed to notice. She had learned to understand it without words. To anyone watching, they looked composed. Perfect, even. But Lina knew how easily that image could break if she stepped out of line. So she didn't. She remained still, her breathing steady even as tension settled deeper in her chest. Nights like this were always the same. Measured. Predictable. But something about tonight felt different. Heavier. Harder to ignore. Her eyes moved across the room, not searching for anyone in particular, just trying to find a moment of distance from the weight beside her. That was when she noticed it, a subtle shift in the crowd. A small space where people stood just a little farther apart, where conversations seemed quieter. It drew her attention without effort. She followed it. And then she saw him. He wasn't doing anything unusual. He simply stood there, still and composed, yet the space around him said everything. No one stood too close. No one interrupted him. There was an unspoken understanding in the way people moved near him. Lina felt it immediately. Power. Not loud. Not forced. Just there. Her gaze lingered longer than it should have. Something about him made the rest of the room feel distant. Damon had always dominated every space he entered, but this felt different. This man didn't dominate the room. The room adjusted to him. The thought stayed with her. Damon would never challenge someone like that. Her heartbeat shifted, then quickened. She didn't know who he was, didn't know anything about him, but she understood what he represented. A boundary. A line Damon wouldn't cross. The idea formed quietly at first. Then it settled, steady and unshakable. A decision. It wasn't safe. It wasn't logical. But neither was staying where she was. "I'll be back," Lina said quietly. Damon glanced at her, his expression unreadable. "Where?" "The restroom." His eyes stayed on her for a moment longer, as if searching for something beneath her calm tone. Lina held his gaze, steady, giving him nothing to question. After a brief pause, he gave a small nod. "Don't take long." "I won't." She turned before he could say anything else. Each step away from him felt deliberate. The distance grew, but the tension didn't disappear. It followed her, lingering at her back, reminding her of what she was leaving behind. And what she was walking toward. She wasn't heading toward the restroom. She was walking toward him. Her pace remained steady, even as her thoughts moved faster. Doubt surfaced briefly, but it didn't stay. Turning back meant returning to the same silence, the same weight she had carried for too long. She kept moving. Closer. The atmosphere around him became clearer with every step. Conversations softened, movements became more careful. People acknowledged him, but no one lingered too close. It made her slow slightly. This was the moment she could still stop. Still turn back. But she didn't. She stepped forward. His eyes lifted to meet hers immediately, sharp and steady. There was no surprise in his expression, only awareness, as though he had already noticed her before she reached him. Lina felt it instantly. This man was dangerous. But not suffocating. That was enough. She held his gaze, even as her pulse rose, even as the weight of what she was about to do settled in her chest. The silence between them stretched, heavy and charged. 1 second passed. Then another. She could still walk away. Nothing had happened yet. But the thought of returning to Damon felt heavier than whatever risk stood in front of her now. So she chose. Without hesitation, Lina stepped closer. And kissed him. The world seemed to fall silent. The music faded. The voices disappeared. Everything blurred as that single decision took hold. Then she pulled back, her breath uneven, her heart racing. The air had changed. It felt sharper now. More dangerous. Slowly, Lina lifted her eyes to meet his. And in that moment, she knew. Everything was about to change. For a moment, no one moved. The music continued, but it no longer filled the room the same way. Conversation slowed, then faded, as attention shifted, subtle at first, then unmistakable. People noticed. Not because of the kiss itself, but because of who it involved. Lina felt it immediately. The weight of eyes. The quiet tension settling around them. Her heart was still racing, her thoughts catching up too late to stop anything now. What she had done couldn't be undone. Slowly, she stepped back. Adrian didn't move. He remained exactly where he was, his expression calm and unreadable, his gaze steady on her as if nothing about the moment had unsettled him. That was what made it worse. He wasn't reacting. He was deciding. Around them, space widened as people instinctively stepped back, their curiosity restrained, their attention careful. No one spoke, but everyone was watching. Waiting. Then, footsteps. Lina didn't need to turn. The tension she had tried to escape returned instantly. Damon. He stopped a short distance behind her. "What is this?" he asked, his voice low, controlled, but no longer calm. Lina felt it in her chest, but she didn't move. For the first time, she didn't step back toward him. The silence that followed was heavy. Adrian shifted his gaze then, slowly, deliberately, until it settled on Damon. That single movement changed everything. Damon held his ground, but the certainty he carried earlier had shifted. "What are you doing with her?" Damon demanded. Adrian didn't answer immediately. He glanced at Lina briefly, as if confirming something, then looked back at Damon. "She's with me." The words were simple, but final. The tension deepened. Damon let out a short breath, something close to a laugh, though there was no humor in it. "With you," he repeated. "You don't even know her." Adrian's expression didn't change. "She's still with me." No explanation. No argument. Just certainty. Lina felt something steady beneath her fear now, something unfamiliar, but real. Damon stepped forward. "Lina," he said. "Come here." The command was clear. Familiar. For a moment, her body almost responded. But she stopped herself. She didn't move. Damon noticed. That wasn't a suggestion. The words landed harder this time. Lina felt the weight of them, the history behind them, the expectation that had always made her obey. But not now. She remained where she was. And that was enough. Adrian stepped forward, placing himself between them. The movement was quiet, but decisive. Damon's gaze hardened. "You're overstepping." Adrian met his gaze without hesitation. "She's not yours to call." The words were controlled, but absolute. Damon's jaw tightened, his control slipping just enough to show. "This doesn't concern you." "It does now." The exchange was short, but it settled everything. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't temporary. It was a claim. And everyone understood it. Damon exhaled slowly, his frustration no longer hidden. "You don't know what you're getting into." Adrian didn't respond. He didn't need to. Lina stood just behind him, her thoughts catching up in fragments. She hadn't planned any of this. Hadn't thought beyond the kiss. But now she understood. This wasn't just protection. It was something far more serious. Damon looked at her again, searching for hesitation. For doubt. For anything that would pull her back. He found nothing. Something in his expression hardened completely. "This isn't over," he said quietly. Then he turned and walked away. The tension lingered even after he was gone, hanging in the air before slowly beginning to fade. Conversations returned, and the music filled the room again, but the shift remained. Nothing felt the same. Lina exhaled softly, her body only now catching up with everything that had happened. She had walked away, and no one had stopped her. Adrian remained still for a moment longer, then turned slightly toward her. Up close, his expression was unchanged. But there was something else there now. Something decided. "You're coming with me," he said. It wasn't a question. Lina felt her breath catch. But she didn't hesitate. Because after everything that had just happened, there was no going back to where she had been. The walk out of the ballroom was quieter than Lina expected. No one stopped them. No one questioned them. Conversations resumed behind them as though nothing unusual had happened, yet she could still feel the weight of what she had done lingering around her. Adrian didn't look back. He moved forward with calm certainty, his pace steady, his presence enough to make space wherever he walked. People stepped aside without being asked, their attention careful, their curiosity restrained. Lina followed beside him. Each step felt unreal. Only minutes ago, she had been standing next to Damon, measuring every movement, holding every breath. Now, she was walking away from it. No argument. No resistance. No one stopping her. The doors opened, and the sound of the ballroom faded behind them. The hallway outside felt cooler, more distant. The shift was immediate, but Lina's chest was still tight, her pulse still unsteady. Adrian kept moving. She stayed close. Neither of them spoke. There was nothing to say, not yet. They reached the exit, and the night air met them as the doors opened again. The city stretched around them, calmer than the world they had just left behind. A car was already waiting. Lina noticed it immediately. Not because it stood out, but because it didn't surprise her. Everything about Adrian felt prepared. He moved toward it without hesitation, as if this had already been decided. The door was opened, and he stepped aside slightly. Lina slowed for a second. Not from doubt, but from the meaning behind the moment. Once she got in, there would be no easy return. Her fingers tightened slightly. Then she stepped inside. The interior was still, sealed off from everything outside. The door closed behind her, final in a way she felt immediately. Adrian entered after her. The car moved. Lina exhaled slowly, her gaze lowering as her thoughts began to settle. Everything had happened too fast. The kiss. Damon. The claim. Now this. She leaned back slightly, aware of the space between them. It wasn't uncomfortable, but it carried weight. She didn't look at him right away. But she felt him. Steady. Unmoved. Unshaken by everything that had just happened. That alone said enough. After a moment, she lifted her gaze. Nothing about him had changed. His expression remained calm, his posture relaxed, his attention clear but not intrusive. He wasn't studying her. He wasn't demanding anything. He was simply present. "You don't have to explain," he said. The words broke the silence. Lina paused. She hadn't expected that. Her thoughts had been preparing, trying to find something to say, something to justify what she had done. But his words made that unnecessary. Still, she spoke. "I wasn't thinking," she said quietly. "I just needed a way out." It wasn't everything, but it was enough. Adrian gave a small nod, as if that was all he needed. The city lights moved past them in steady motion. Lina watched them briefly, her mind slowing, the tension in her chest easing just slightly. For the first time that night, Damon wasn't beside her. The thought settled. Unfamiliar, but real. "Are you afraid of him?" Adrian asked. The question was direct. Lina didn't answer immediately. She considered it carefully. Fear had been present for so long that it no longer felt separate from anything else. "I don't trust him," she said. It was the closest truth she was willing to give. Adrian didn't press further. The car slowed. Lina looked up as it came to a stop. They had arrived. She stepped out, her gaze lifting to take in the building in front of her. Tall. Modern. Set apart in a way that felt intentional. Private. Secure. Adrian moved ahead, and she followed. Inside, everything was orderly, untouched by unnecessary movement. The space reflected the same thing she had felt from the moment she saw him. Control. But not suffocating. They moved through it without interruption, the transition seamless, as though everything had already been arranged. The doors opened to the penthouse. Lina stepped in. The space was large and open, designed with precision. Nothing felt excessive, yet everything carried purpose. It wasn't just luxury. It was intention. She paused briefly, taking it in, not because of what it was, but because of what it meant. This was where he lived. This was where she was now. Adrian entered after her, and the door closed behind them. The sound felt final. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Lina exhaled slowly, her body beginning to adjust to the shift. The tension that had followed her all night was still there, but it felt farther away now. Less immediate. She was no longer in that room. No longer beside Damon. no longer trapped in something she couldn't control. She was here. Adrian's attention moved to her. "You're safe here," he said. The words were simple, but certain. Lina held his gaze, searching for anything that would contradict it. She found nothing. Her breath eased, just slightly. Not fully, but enough. Because after everything that had happened, this was the first moment that felt different. And she understood. Everything was about to change. Morning came slowly. For a few seconds, Lina didn't move. She lay still, her eyes open, her thoughts unusually quiet. The ceiling above her was unfamiliar, and for a brief moment, nothing made sense. Then memory settled in. The ballroom. The kiss. Damon. Adrian. Her breath shifted as everything returned. She sat up. The room around her was ordered and untouched by anything unnecessary. Every detail had been arranged with care. Nothing felt random. She swung her legs over the side of the bed, pausing as her feet touched the floor. This was real. She was here. Not there. That alone felt strange. Lina stood and moved toward the window. The city stretched out beneath her, distant and steady, unchanged by everything that had shifted in her life overnight. For a moment, she simply stood there. No pressure behind her. No voice beside her. No need to measure every movement. The absence of it felt unfamiliar. A soft knock came at the door. Lina turned slightly. "Come in," she said. The door opened, and a woman stepped inside. Her movement was smooth, her expression neutral but respectful. "Good morning," she said. "Mr. Salvatore asked that these be brought to you." She placed a set of clothes neatly on a nearby chair. Lina glanced at them, then back at the woman. "Thank you." The woman gave a small nod. "If you need anything, just let us know." Then she left. The door closed. Lina remained still for a moment before walking over to the chair. The clothes were simple, carefully selected. Not excessive. Not random. Everything here seemed deliberate. She changed, the quiet of the room settling around her as she moved. No interruptions. No tension. When she finished, she paused again, taking a slow breath. Then she stepped out. The penthouse was just as she remembered, open, precise, thoughtfully arranged. The space felt large, but not overwhelming. She moved forward, her steps slow at first, then steadier. Adrian was already there. He stood near the window, his posture relaxed, his attention on the city below. He didn't turn immediately, as if he had already noticed her presence. Lina stopped a few steps away. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then he turned. His expression remained composed, his gaze steady. "You slept," he said. It wasn't a question. Lina gave a small nod. "I did." He studied her briefly, as if confirming something. "Good." The word settled easily between them. There was no pressure in it. Just acknowledgement. Lina remained where she was, aware of the distance between them, aware of how much had changed overnight. Everything felt different, but not in a way she could fully define yet. Her gaze moved briefly across the room, then back to him. "My things," she began, then paused. "I didn't bring anything." Adrian didn't react. "You won't need them." The answer was simple. Certain. Lina held his gaze for a moment, then nodded. She didn't question it. Not because she didn't have questions, but because she understood what he meant. Everything she needed was already here. "You'll have a phone," he added. "It's already set up." Lina blinked slightly, the detail catching her off guard. "Thank you." It felt like the only response that fit. A brief pause followed. Then, "Damon won't reach you," Adrian said. The words were calm, but firm. Lina felt something shift. Not complete relief. Not yet. But something close. She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she let the words settle, letting them take shape in her mind. No calls. No messages. No unexpected presence. It felt distant. Almost unreal. Adrian watched her for a moment before speaking again. "You're safe here." The same words from the night before. But now, they carried more weight. Because she had time to understand them. Lina exhaled slowly. "I know," she said. And this time, she meant it. The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It felt steady. Adrian turned slightly, his attention returning to the window. Lina remained where she was, her thoughts settling in a way they hadn't in a long time. Nothing was pressing in on her. Nothing was demanding a response. For the first time, she had space. Space to think. Space to breathe. Space to exist without waiting for something to go wrong. It didn't feel normal, but it felt right. Her gaze moved again, taking in the room, the details, the quiet order around her. This was different. Not just a place. A shift. A new position in a life she hadn't expected to change so quickly. She understood that now. This wasn't temporary. Not in the way she had first imagined. This was something else. Something she had stepped into the moment she made that decision. And now, there was no stepping back out. Lina straightened slightly, her breathing even, her thoughts clearer than before. Whatever this was, she was already part of it. And beneath everything else, she knew. This was only the beginning. The shift came quietly. At first, nothing seemed different. The penthouse remained unchanged, steady and untouched by anything outside its walls. Lina had begun to settle into its rhythm, waking without tension, moving without hesitation, learning how to exist without constantly anticipating what might go wrong. But that sense of distance didn't last. Because Damon hadn't disappeared. He had been silent. And silence didn't mean absence. It meant waiting. The first sign came without warning. Adrian was in the main living space, his attention fixed on something in front of him, his posture relaxed but alert. Lina was nearby, her movements more certain now than they had been before. Then, a phone call. Adrian glanced at the screen before answering, his expression unchanged. Lina didn't hear the voice on the other end. But she didn't need to. She saw it in the slight shift of his focus. Subtle, but clear. What happened? Adrian asked. His tone was even. A pause followed. Then, where? Another pause. Lina felt something tighten in her chest. She didn't interrupt. She simply watched. Adrian listened for a few seconds longer, then ended the call. No reaction. No wasted movement. But something had changed. Lina stepped closer. What is it? She asked. Adrian looked at her. For a brief moment, he said nothing. Then, Damon tried to make a move. The words were simple, but they carried weight. Lina felt it immediately. Her body tensed, her thoughts shifting back to something she hadn't felt since the night of the event. He's not finished, Adrian added. It wasn't concern. It was fact. Lina held his gaze, her breathing steady but tighter now. What did he do? He was found injured, Adrian said. And he's claiming I was responsible. The meaning settled quickly. Lina frowned slightly. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't need to. The response was direct. And clear. Lina understood. This wasn't about truth. It was about pressure. About creating something that could reach Adrian, even if it wasn't real. He wants a reaction, she said. Adrian gave a slight nod. And he won't get one. There was no hesitation in his voice. Lina studied him, searching for any sign that this had unsettled him. She found none. You're not worried? She asked. No. The answer came instantly. Lina exhaled slowly. The more she thought about it, the clearer it became. Damon might create problems. But Adrian had already prepared for them. There's proof? She asked. Adrian nodded once. Everything is recorded. He won't get far with it. That settled something in her. Not completely, but enough. Because this wasn't the kind of situation she had known before. This wasn't chaos. This was handled. Still, the thought of Damon remained. Not as fear, but as something unfinished. He won't stop, Lina said. Adrian met her gaze. No. A brief pause. Then, but he won't reach you. The words were firm. Final. Lina felt them settle differently this time. Not reassurance. Certainty. She didn't question it. Because everything she had seen so far made one thing clear. Adrian didn't say things he couldn't enforce. The room grew still again. But it wasn't the same as before. There was something sharper in it now. More aware. Lina stepped back slightly, her thoughts moving through everything she had just heard. Damon had acted. And he had failed. But that didn't mean he was done. It meant he was escalating. Adrian turned slightly, his attention already shifting away from the situation as if it had been resolved. For him. It had. Lina watched him for a moment, then looked toward the window, her mind settling slowly. This was the difference. Damon reacted. Adrian prepared. That alone changed everything. She looked out at the city below. Life continued as usual, untouched by what was unfolding beneath the surface. But she understood now. Things had shifted. Not just for her, but for Damon too. Because whatever he had expected, this wasn't it. Lina let out a slow breath. Damon had made his move. And it hadn't worked. But she knew. This wasn't over. Not yet. The change didn't come all at once. At first, it was small. Easy to ignore. Lina noticed it in quiet moments, when everything slowed, when her body didn't respond the way she expected. It wasn't obvious. Not enough to name. Just something slightly off. She told herself it would pass. But it didn't. Days went by, and the feeling remained. Subtle. Persistent. Different. Lina moved through the penthouse as she normally did, her routine steady, her movements controlled. On the surface, nothing had changed. But underneath, something continued to shift. She noticed it again that morning. A pause. A moment that lingered longer than it should have. Her breath slowed as the thought formed more clearly this time. Not uncertain. Not dismissible. She stopped. The realization came quietly. And then, it settled. Lina stood still for a moment, letting everything align, piece by piece, until the meaning became impossible to ignore. She knew what it was. She just hadn't said it yet. Her hand rested lightly against the edge of the table as she took a slow breath. This wasn't something she could leave unanswered. She needed certainty. The decision formed, steady and unchanging. She left without drawing attention, moving through the building with composed steps, her expression unchanged even as her thoughts moved faster beneath the surface. The clinic was quiet. Orderly. Exactly what she needed. She didn't speak much when she arrived. There was no need for explanation beyond what was already understood. Everything moved forward without delay. Time passed slowly, measured in waiting. Until the answer came. Lina remained seated, her gaze lowered as the weight of it settled in. There was no uncertainty now. It was real. She was pregnant. The words didn't need to be spoken aloud. They existed fully in her mind, clear and undeniable. Her hand moved slightly, resting against her abdomen without thinking. It felt the same. But everything had changed. Her thoughts shifted quickly, moving through what this meant, what it would affect, what came next. Nothing about this was simple. And yet, there was something else beneath it. Quieter. Unexpected. Lina exhaled slowly, her breathing evening out as she allowed the reality to settle. She didn't rush. She didn't need to. When she finally stood, her posture was steady, her expression composed. But something inside her had shifted. Not fear. Something deeper. She left the clinic the same way she had entered, unnoticed. But she didn't feel the same. The ride back passed quickly, her thoughts filling the space. By the time she returned, the penthouse looked exactly as it always had. Unchanged. But she wasn't. Lina stepped inside and closed the door behind her. For a moment, she remained still. Then she walked forward. Adrian was there. He looked up as she entered, his attention shifting to her immediately. There was no delay, no distraction. Just awareness. She stopped a few steps away. For a brief moment, neither of them spoke. Then, "I went out," Lina said. Her voice was steady. Adrian held her gaze. "I know." The response was expected. Lina continued. "I needed to confirm something." He didn't interrupt. He simply waited. Lina took a breath. Then she said it. "I'm pregnant." The words settled between them. Clear. Direct. For the first time, Adrian didn't respond immediately. He held her gaze, his expression unchanged, but his silence carried weight. The moment stretched. Then, "I see," he said. The words were measured, but deliberate. Lina watched him closely, searching for a reaction, for any shift that would tell her what this meant to him. There was none. No surprise. No hesitation. Just acceptance. And somehow, that made it more real. "I didn't plan this," she said. It wasn't an explanation. Just truth. Adrian nodded once. "I know." Again, no judgment. No resistance. Only acknowledgement. The pause that followed felt different. Defined. Because everything had changed. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't something that would pass. It was real. Permanent. Adrian's gaze remained steady. Then, it changes things. The statement was simple, but absolute. Lina felt it settle. Yes, she said. There was nothing else to add. Another brief silence followed. But this time, it felt clear. Set. Because whatever this had become, had already begun. And there was no stepping away from it now. The clinic felt different the moment Lina stepped in. Nothing obvious had changed. The space was still orderly, the air still calm, the routine unchanged. But something beneath it felt off. She noticed it immediately. A shift she couldn't explain. She sat in the examination room, her hands resting lightly in her lap, her thoughts steady but alert. This wasn't her first visit. This time, there was no uncertainty. Only confirmation. A quiet moment before everything moved forward. The room remained still, the faint sounds beyond the door distant and controlled. Everything appeared normal. But Lina had learned something. Normal didn't always last. Her gaze moved toward the door as footsteps echoed from the hallway. Closer. Direct. Not passing by. Stopping. Her body tensed slightly. Not fear. Awareness. The door opened. Damon stepped in. The air changed instantly. Lina didn't move. Her eyes fixed on him as reality settled in. He looked different, his composure thinner, his control no longer as precise as it once was. But it was still him. You shouldn't be here, Lina said. Her voice was firm. Damon didn't answer right away. His gaze moved over her slowly, taking everything in, as if trying to reclaim something he had already lost. You left, he said. Low. Tight. Yes. No hesitation. No explanation. Just truth. Damon stepped forward. You think this changes anything? Lina held her ground. It already has. The answer came without delay. Something in his expression hardened. You don't understand what you've done. I do. And this time, there was no doubt in it. Damon moved closer. Faster now. You don't walk away from me like that, he said, his voice tightening. You don't just decide it's over. I already did. The words landed. Final. For a second, everything held still. Then, he grabbed her. His hand closed around her arm, sudden and hard. Lina reacted immediately, pulling back, but his grip tightened. Let go, she said. Her voice remained steady, but her body resisted now, pushing against him. You're not leaving this like it's nothing, Damon said. There was no control left in it. Only force. Lina tried to pull free again. Let go. He didn't. The tension snapped. Then, the door opened. Adrian stepped in. Everything shifted. Damon didn't release her immediately. But the moment had already changed. Adrian didn't rush. Didn't raise his voice. He walked forward, his presence cutting through the room with quiet certainty. Let her go. The words were low, but absolute. Damon held on for a second longer. Then Adrian stepped closer. That was enough. Damon released her. Lina pulled her arm back instantly, stepping away, putting space between them. Her breathing had sharpened, but she steadied it quickly. Silence followed. Then Damon let out a short, humorless laugh. So this is how it is now. Adrian moved slightly, placing himself in front of Lina without effort. A line drawn. Clear. Damon's gaze darkened. You think this ends here? It already has. Adrian's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Damon held his stare for a moment longer, searching for something he wouldn't find. Then he stepped back. Not in defeat, but in understanding. This wasn't his situation anymore. You'll regret this, Damon said. The threat lingered, but it no longer carried weight. Adrian didn't respond. Damon looked at Lina one last time, then turned, and walked out. The door closed. The tension lingered for a moment, then began to settle. Lina exhaled slowly, her body catching up with what had just happened. The pressure of his grip remained faintly on her arm, but it no longer mattered. She was out of his reach. Adrian turned toward her. Are you hurt? The question was direct. Lina shook her head. No. Her voice was steady again. He studied her briefly, then gave a small nod. That was enough. The room felt different now. Not calm. Resolved. Lina stood still, her thoughts settling into something clear. Damon had come. He had tried. And he had failed. Completely. She understood that now. Not just in the moment. But fully. This wasn't something he could take back. This wasn't something he could control. It was finished. Lina looked at Adrian, her gaze steady. And for the first time, there was no hesitation. No doubt. Nothing pulling her backward. Only one direction left. Forward. Time moved forward. Not suddenly, but steadily. The days that followed no longer carried the tension that once defined everything. What had once been sharp and constant had faded, replaced by something quieter, more certain. Lina felt it in the way she moved. In the way she breathed. In what was no longer there. Damon was gone. Not just physically, but completely. There were no calls. No messages. No unexpected presence. At first, it felt unfamiliar. Then, it became real. Lina adjusted slowly, her routine settling into something new. The penthouse no longer felt like a place she was staying. It felt like where she belonged. The change wasn't forced. It came naturally. Day by day. Her hand rested lightly against her abdomen as she stood near the window, her gaze moving across the city below. Everything outside continued as it always had, but for her, everything had shifted. What she carried now wasn't fear. It was something steady. Something certain. Time passed. And with it, everything changed. The day arrived without urgency. No chaos. No confusion. Just a moment that came when it was meant to. Lina lay back, her breathing controlled, her focus steady. The room around her was prepared, everything already in place. Adrian was there. He didn't speak much. He didn't need to. His presence held steady beside her. Everything moved forward without delay. Time blurred, marked only by moments that built into something greater. And then, it happened. A small sound broke through everything else. Clear. Alive. Lina's breath caught as she looked down, her body going still as the moment settled fully into place. Real. Immediate. Their son. Carmine. The name was already there, waiting. Lina's hand moved gently as she held him, her gaze fixed on him while everything else faded into the background. Nothing else mattered in that moment. Not the past. Not what had led them there. Only this. Only him. Adrian stood beside her, his presence unchanged, but something in him had shifted. Quieter. Deeper. He looked at the child, then at Lina. No explanation was needed. Everything had already taken shape. Time continued. Days turned into weeks. And life moved forward. Then, the news came. It wasn't sudden. It wasn't shocking. Only final. Damon was dead. Prison. The words carried weight, but not the kind they once had. There was no fear attached to them now. No tension. Only closure. Lina stood still for a moment after hearing it, her thoughts settling completely. It was over. Not partially. Not temporarily. Completely. There was nothing left. No return. No unfinished edges. Just an end. She exhaled slowly, the last trace of something she had carried for too long finally leaving her. When she looked down again, Carmine was there in her arms, untouched by everything that had come before. That alone was enough. Adrian stepped closer, his presence steady beside her. There was nothing left to resolve. Lina's gaze lifted briefly, taking in the space around her, the life she now stood in, the path she had stepped into without fully understanding it at the time. No. She did. This wasn't survival. It wasn't escape. It was something real. Something lasting. She adjusted her hold slightly, drawing Carmine closer as a quiet calm settled fully into place. No fear remained. No pressure. No past reaching for her. Only forward. And for the first time, there was nothing behind her worth turning back to.